For the third day of the workshop, we're beginning putting together all these harmony lines that we had talked about before and stitching together wallpaper lines into something that looks like it could be just a nice line by itself. Okay? So going from one idea to another idea to another idea and building in your own wallpaper line from these ideas.
Look at those notes here. The first note that you see is a low D. That's a wallpaper note for the D chord. The high D is a wallpaper note for the G chord. Okay? And then that E is not. Okay. F sharp, the next note in the melody line that we made here, this harmony line, is a wallpaper for the D. And it's acting like wallpaper because it's kind of a long note. Okay? And then it goes down to an E, which is not, and then it goes down to a D, which is. Okay? And then in the next lines, you can see that it's kind of doing the same thing. It's basically, there's wallpaper notes thrown into this line that I created in the harmony. There's a lot of basically stitched together with sections of wallpaper where it's just kind of like hanging there. But then I'm like changing octaves and I'm connecting the notes a little bit just to make it all work. And making my own sort of harmony line that way, okay? Just sort of making some sense? Yes?
Yeah, I have a question about playing high harmonies. I have a notion that I don't know where I got or whether it's accurate or not. But when you're playing with a date for a dance, that you should avoid a higher than the melody harmony until maybe the third time.
Well, if you go up here, if you do this, you're going to notice it. Okay?
Yeah.
So in a way, this isn't really a wallpaper line so much anymore because it's something. I named it WP. I should change that. You know, it's really when you do something, especially if you go up, it's gonna sound now like you're taking almost like a counter melody to the whole thing.
Right.
The idea, I guess, this may be not the best example, but the idea was to take different pieces of wallpaper and feel free to play something that's not in the chords that you would put into the wallpaper, but just as a line leading into something else that is.
So I guess my question has to do with getting the tune established.
Yep.
At a dance before you start doing things like
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very good point, and that's a very good point. And I am a firm believer in that. I like to play the tune, the melody, the first time, mostly the second time at least, or entirely the second time, the third time, and then I'm starting to, like, the melody line starts to get a little ragged, it starts to do something. And by, say, the 6th or the 8th or the 10th round through the whole thing, you can go into places like we went into for one of the classes where it's just like, there's nobody on melody, and everybody's just doing these sort of weaving interline, you know. And I love that, but I can't do that the first round of the dance because I'll lose total track of where I am.
But if you do it at the right time, it seems like the listener still has that melody.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay. And all this thing that you're bringing up, that's another one of these topics in the grand scheme that I talked about the very first day, and that's deciding when do you play these different ideas. Okay. You know, you've got now a big toolbox of different things, and sometimes you don't want to use certain tools until the very end. You have to do the finished carpentry after you've built a house, right? And building the house is the first part. And that's what you'll do during the first parts of the ring. But these are just ideas we can use. Yeah.
So I have a question. What is the difference between hijacking the melody and making a counter melody?
Yeah.
Because we talked about hijacking the melody yesterday.
Right.
And you know, what's the difference between, gosh, that person's always hijacking the melody, or wow, they make really nice counter melodies. Like it's like a social question.
Well, no, I think it's a timing question.
Okay.
And I think it's very much to
Yeah.
what's sitting over here. Because at the very beginning, when you're trying to establish the melody, and somebody does a complicated counter melody against it, or decides to play arpeggios for all the chords, you know, up and down the scale for 3 octaves or something, or, you know, because they just think that, oh, this is what I have to do because I have to fill in the chords somehow, and I'll do it. That starts to become like the melody, and the melody's not established yet. Okay? The melody has to really get into everybody's body. You have to say it. You have to honor the person who wrote the tune, even if that person's dead for 400 years. And then, you know, once that tune is out there and in everybody's sort of head, like you're talking about, even though it disappears, it kind of is still there for the dance. Then it's okay, I think, to start doing a lot of these things. And you can, you know, and then if you do this beautiful counter melody, it sounds like a counter melody. It does sound like you're trying to steal away from the melody that's happening. Does that make some sense? Okay. All right. Okay, good. So anyhow, that's what, the other thing that's illustrated, something else that's in number 8, is something that was somebody mentioned, and that is the use of breath and space. And that's a really useful thing to be doing when you're making these wallpaper cards. You don't have to play all the time. You just have to fill in a few notes every so often, and that gives the pad. If you want, yes.
So how do you decide when you're creating something like this that has some wallpaper notes and others that are not? How do you decide what you fill into the parts that are not wallpaper notes?
Well, so what did I use here? What are the notes that were not in the wallpaper chord?
E,
Yeah, but it was connecting between.
D, and F sharp. Okay.
Right.
So
Oh,
it's
exactly.
just something to get you from point A to point
leading
B.
me right from one place to another. Okay,
Okay.
and that's generally the rule. You'll put in something that will just motivate going to this other place.
Yeah, an explanation almost.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. And then wallpaper 9. What is this one? What am I illustrating here? Do you have any idea?
You call it a drone when it's above?
I do. I call it high drones and low drones. I do. I do.
I was just saying, hi, drone.
High drone. Hello, drone.
But it's on the 5th.
Okay. Yeah, that's the 5th thing. Okay, so that's the 5th thing. We talked about that yesterday. The 5th note of the scale is a special thing, right? Okay, so you can get by. It didn't clash with anything. I mean, you could have played anything just about, and it wouldn't clash because it's so high.
You can do the same thing with a
That's
low.
the thing about the 5th, all right? You can hold on to a long note for a long time. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. 5th is a special note. I didn't tell you that's why. It's the only note in the scale that's a half step away from everything else, either direction. Okay? And therefore, you're never in the scale. In the scale. The only thing in the scale that's a whole step away. And so you're never, whichever chord, diatonic chord you use, you're never going to get
That's great.
a big half-step clash
Yeah.
with them. Okay, so 5 is a special number, right? Okay, it's cool. And it works with, really, you just hold 5 for a long time. You know this instinctively, I'm sure you do, because you use it. It's the droning thing.
That's
with the
so,
fiddle.
I've never thought of that, but that's true.
Okay, so anything else, the 5th. And this was illustrating just like a crescendo, giving the shape to note. You can also crescendo and decrescendo come out in the same way. There's lots of things just to give it shape. Number 10, let me see what wallpaper 10 is here. Wallpaper 10 is basically just saying that you can do things in a high tessiture or a low tessiture. 9 and 10, I was basically trying to illustrate that you can either go way up high or way down low to do things in wallpaper. You can be busier if you're below the melody, and this gets back to your point. Okay, so let's look at wallpaper 11. This is where we're starting to add some rhythm to the whole thing. So there's some stuff that's going on. There's a little rhythmic. You can take your wallpaper ideas and you can put rhythm behind it, and you can do that with any idea that you have. Okay. We talked about, I call this H00. It looks exactly like the melody, okay? So that illustrated one of the ideas we said yesterday when you're seconding behind somebody else. And what is that idea that we talked about? Unison, right. Or unison an octave below, or unison an octave above. And then if you run out of space, what's maybe the thing that you can do? You can hop octaves, or you can just leave out notes. Right? That's the easy thing to do. And if you start modifying the notes, which is the thing that everybody's instinct is to do, then it starts to sound not like unison anymore. So I think you kind of defeat your purpose by doing that. So I think it's better just to play a snatch, and then stop, and then play another snatch. Okay, so did we talk about number 1? We did not talk about number 1. So let's play through this melody. We've got 16 bars of the tune. And we'll do the same thing again where I'll have you guys play the harmony to start off with, and over here play some melody, and then we'll stop, and then we'll switch. Okay, so
Which one are we doing?
harmony. You guys
We're
are
doing
on
the harmony
I mean,
section.
one or
You guys are on harmony. So it's line number 1. Okay. No, sorry, it's called H01. H01. It's the second. Okay, H01. 1, 2, and you go ahead and play chords if you want. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, good. What am I doing here?
You're going on and off the melody.
On and off the melody, exactly. I call it melody and snatches. Okay, you play a little. That's on and off the melody is very good. It's a good idea. You're going to freak out your bandmates if you're in a band where they don't expect you to do this, because they'll be going like, oh, I guess someone, they've got the melody, I'll stop. Okay? Paul Orts hates this. Okay? But I love it. And I do this all the time on the piano. I say, and I tell the bandmates ahead of time, if I double you sometime, don't worry about it. I'm just doubling you because I want to do this. I like the texture. But if you're sitting there, are you able to listen while, as you're playing? Are you able to hear what's going on? When you're on the melody, it kind of gives it this power. Okay? Yeah?
So you simplified the melody where the real melody has something special.
Oh, I think I just did it randomly, but yeah, maybe that's what it was.
It's on there's that little dissonance with the E, and then you're holding a D.
Yeah, you can just hold a note. So it's basically you're going off like, I'm just gonna travel along with you on this melody line. Da, 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 da. At some point you're gonna, oh, I'm just gonna stay behind here and visit the gift shop, and you go down and continue the tour. Da, 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 da. And at some point you'll come back and see me, and now I'm gonna join along with you for a little bit, and now we get to another spot, and you leave me, and then we come back. Okay? And that's a great thing, and if you ever go back and listen to any of the Nightingale recordings, you'll see that this is exactly what they're doing, over and over and over again. And it just, to me, is such a great, great texture that almost never gets used. Okay? On and off the melody is a great way to describe it. I call it melody and snatches. Okay? Just wanted you to illustrate this is another idea. Okay? Number 2 is what we're on, right? Okay, we talked about that yesterday.
These are the arpeggios.
Okay, arpeggios, right? Okay, and I gave you 2 different ideas of arpeggios: fast arpeggios, slow arpeggios, arpeggios. You could make it much more complicated if you look further on down the line. Some of the arpeggios go down the scale, some of them go up the scale. Some of them have more breath, and others have less breath. These are going to be. If you played one of these lines right now, Actually, I'd just like to illustrate it, okay? Who wants to play melody? You want to play melody? I almost never call on you because you're back in the corner away from all the other melody instruments. So why don't you play the melody line? You want to play the harmony or the melody line?
I'll do the melody.
Okay, do the melody line, and I need 1, 2, 3, 1. Little pieces of arpeggios, wallpaper, little pieces of arpeggios, stick them in there. It's a great thing to do. If you're trying to connect things, we already talked about connecting things with just a single line from one wallpaper place to another place. You can also put a line if you're going to go from maybe not adjacent neighbors in wallpaper points. You can, like maybe they're farther apart, or there's a nice wallpaper thing up here somewhere. Put a little line that'll take you on up in there. Okay, all right. So those are ideas. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is a similar idea. Number 4, what is this? Fills. Okay, great. Let's listen to what fills sound like. So we'll have you all on melody and on harmony, and we'll stop at 16 bars and switch. Okay, so this is now reading the second last line. H 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So if I was to call this something, I'd call it fills, or playing in the breaths, as you wish, but playing in the long notes, something else like this. This is if you're going to do something which is busy, with these like da 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 da, da-da-da-da-da-da, little pieces of scales and stuff like that. That's the best place to put them. It's in a place where the melody's got a kind of a longer held note, because you're not going to interfere with them. I've made harmony lines. I sometimes will write out three, 4-part harmony parts stuff if I'm trying to play. And my brain is good with 3 parts. I can hear 3 voices all in my head at the same time. Actually, I hear many voices in my head. But ignoring those other ones, and the tinnitus that I have, if I ignore those, then there's the 4th one always trips me up. And so when I do the playback, you know, I've had lines where I'm looking at 2 lines next to each other and they're doing this. You know, and each one of them separately sounds fine, but they're starting a half step apart. That's your danger if you're going to be doing something against a melody line, and if you're trying to do a busy part. Sometimes you just crash and burn all over each other. Okay, way better to do it in the fills than the breaks.
Yeah, I was surprised that you put the fill in the 4th full measure instead of the 3rd measure when the melody was on just on a long note.
There's no reason
Oh,
to
okay.
do that. Okay, it's just an artistic choice. Okay,
All right.
so that means that if you wanted to go and write out a part, and next time I'm going to have you do all this for me, that would be great. No, if you did it and you came up with something, you would illustrate exactly the same point, and that is playing in the place when the melody stops. Now, I just did it this way to show you that it doesn't have to always be in the same place. You know, you could da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, let it hang for a little bit, and then da-da-da, and then you can fill it in later on. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, you can make a short fill, you can let it hang for a while, you can start it right away at the beginning, you could start a little bit before, and some of the other examples in here, I think, start at different places. Okay? So they're all like little examples of different things you could do, and it's not necessarily a cohesive line by itself. Just like the arpeggios, obviously, if you try to read these arpeggio lines, they're terrible if you were to actually play them all the way, just like I wrote them at the dance. They're just ideas, pieces. Take these 2 bars as another thing for your toolkit. Okay? Yeah.
I think the fill one is different from the reason you had that reaction is when you're playing dance music, fill is often really helpful to tell the dancers to keep moving or to bridge. So I anyway feel the impetus to put it in a place where I'm signaling dancers as opposed to just making the music sound.
I think it's a really good point. What I'm thinking is that this is the context.
It does not override what you said.
No. I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point. So the seconder, the person who's doing the seconding on a melody, can also help to propel the rhythm besides what the rhythm player is playing. So supposing the rhythm player decides to say, "Oh, I'm going to give the job of the seconding. I'm going to give the rhythm job to this person who's doing the seconding, and I'm just going to sit here and play big, whole, long chords and not give the dancers any rhythm for a bit." And that's a texture that I use quite a bit. It's like I'm not actually providing the rhythm under the whole thing. That's because I've got somebody who's sitting in either the melody is very busy, or there's somebody in the seconding job who's pushing things forward. Okay? And that's exactly what you're saying, I think, in a way that can actually you can take on that as a role as a seconding person.
And particularly fill when the melody line is held.
And then you
her
would want,
instinct was like, wait, the fill came in late for a dance.
Right, and under those assumptions, or under those, if that was the circumstance there where the rhythm player wasn't pushing things forward, then yes, you would want to come in earlier. Okay. Okay, but it depends kind of on context, and you know, this is, again, there's a whole ensemble of different people who are playing, and they have different roles. Okay, does that make sense? All right, and then let's look at the last one here, this harmony number 5, and I've written down long echoes adjusted harmonically, short echoes. The main idea is that you have a possibility sometimes in these fills of making a very specific type of fill. And sometimes you can copy the motif of the melody, and then I call it an echo. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You can do that again when they're holding it. So let's play it so you can hear the ideas behind it. Okay? I will have you start off on melody to about here, and then from about here over on. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. The first one is a little more accessible. And you could actually do exactly the same line if you wanted to. But I, for God knows what reason, decided to change it. Change that long echo. Why? I don't know. Okay. And then the next line is a long echo, but that one has to be kind of adjusted a little bit. So supposing I did a true echo on, let me just play what would a true echo would sound like on these sorts of things. Okay, so can I again borrow you to do melody for me, Sarah? I'm just gonna do like what I call a true melody. You can listen and see what happens if you don't change. Let me play with the bass note. You'll hear it better. 1, 2, 3, 1. Yes, right, exactly. I want to change. The basic idea is that fits really well with a D chord. It does not fit really well with an A chord. Okay, you have to make an adjustment somehow or other. And one way you can take it, the whole thing is transpose it up to A, as an example, and change your starting point. Or you can start tweaking around the notes to make it all work. These are things that you'll get an instinct for after you've tried it. And the other thing is that sometimes if there's a motif that says da-da-da-da, like a lot of busy notes together, sometimes that gets in the way of what's happening when you do it as an echo. It might get in the way of what's happening with the other thing. And so you can simplify it back a little bit too. That's two things that you might have to do to adjust the echo. It's simplification and then changing the harmonic structure. The other thing I want to point out, and then we're really out of time, there's these long sort of held notes things. And those motifs, they happen quickly, but you can do this little cascading thing sometimes, and certain pieces are amenable to this. To do the and it's beautiful, and I really like hearing what happened here because I hadn't had a chance to do it. So I just want to play the last 8 bars of the piece with y'all on the harmony line and on the melody line, and so I can hear it again because it was beautiful. Okay, the last 8 bars. That would be the bottom line. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If you can find pieces of music that have a little thing like this. So that's all I have for this paper. It's all we have time for in class. We're getting to parallel thirds tomorrow. Okay, and there's different types of harmony lines. Yeah?
When are you going to get parallel fifths?
Parallel fourths.
Parallel fourths.
Parallel fourths.
Parallel octaves and fourths.